Hey folks, welcome back to Stoic Quotes 365. Let's dive into a question that hits close to home for so many of us. Why is it that the people we care about the most are often the ones who seem to pull away? Have you ever given your time, energy, and love to someone only to feel them drift further and further from you? It's a heart-wrenching experience, one that leaves you questioning everything. Was I too much? Not enough? What did I do wrong? But here's the thing, it's not about you being too caring. It's not even necessarily about the love you've given. What's happening is rooted in human psychology, a series of unseen dynamics that govern how people respond to connection, attachment, and vulnerability. And when you understand these dynamics, you'll see that the problem isn't you. It's the unspoken rules of attraction and value at play. We've all been told that love is the answer to everything, right? That if you care deeply and give generously, the other person will naturally reciprocate. But here's the truth. Relationships don't always work that way. Sometimes, the very things we do to show we care, the constant attention, the overgiving, the lack of boundaries, can unintentionally create distance instead of closeness. And it's not because caring is wrong. It's because of how people interpret and react to care based on their own fears, insecurities, and experiences. Take a moment to think about your own life. Have you ever found yourself trying harder and harder to prove your worth to someone, hoping they'll see how much you care? And yet, no matter what you do, they seem to pull back. It's a vicious cycle, one that often leaves you feeling exhausted and questioning your self-worth. But let me tell you this, their actions, or lack of action, aren't a reflection of your value. They're a reflection of the complex psychological patterns that drive human behavior. Here's where Stoicism offers us a guiding light. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This philosophy reminds us that while we can't control how others perceive our care, we can control how we approach relationships. Instead of chasing validation or trying to fix someone's behavior, we can focus on building connections that are rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. Now, let's talk about why this video matters. When someone pulls away, it's easy to fall into a spiral of overthinking. You replay every conversation, second-guess every action, and wonder if you're the problem. But the truth is, their distance often has little to do with you and everything to do with their own internal struggles. By understanding the psychological dynamics at play, you can stop blaming yourself and start navigating relationships with clarity and confidence. The answers we're about to explore go beyond surface-level advice. We'll uncover the hidden reasons why people pull away from those who care deeply for them, based on psychological principles and insights from Stoic philosophy. These aren't just ideas. They're actionable insights that will help you create healthier, more balanced relationships. Let me share a quick personal insight. I've been in situations where I gave everything to someone, my time, my attention, my energy, only to watch them grow more distant. It felt unfair and confusing, but as I started to understand the dynamics of attraction and value, everything changed. I realized that caring isn't the problem. It's about how that care is perceived and balanced. When you understand these dynamics, you stop chasing and start attracting. So, what's the key takeaway here? It's about shifting your mindset. Instead of asking, "What can I do to make them stay?" ask yourself, "How can I create a connection that honors both of us?" This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending not to care. It's about finding balance, caring deeply while maintaining your own boundaries and self-respect. Before we dive into the deeper insights of this video, I have a small favor to ask. If this topic resonates with you, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It's a simple way to support this channel and ensure you don't miss any of the valuable insights we'll be sharing. Your support means the world to me and helps us grow this community of thoughtful, empowered individuals. All right, folks, let's get started and uncover the truths behind why people often leave those who care most about them. By the end of this video, you'll have the clarity and tools to approach your relationships with strength and confidence. Let's dive in. Number 1. How attachment can undermine your value. All right, folks, let's dive into one of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships: attachment. It's natural to care about someone and want to form a strong bond. But when attachment crosses into dependency, it can unintentionally lower the way someone perceives your value. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about understanding the delicate balance between connection and independence. Think about it. When you're overly attached to someone, your actions often revolve around seeking their approval or validation. You might prioritize their needs above your own, constantly reach out, or try to prove your worth through grand gestures. While these efforts come from a place of genuine care, they can sometimes have the opposite effect. Instead of drawing the person closer, it can make them feel overwhelmed, or worse, take your presence for granted. Why does this happen? Human psychology plays a big role here. People are naturally drawn to what feels valuable and unique. When you're overly attached, it can create an imbalance where you appear too available or overly eager. This abundance of attention can unintentionally diminish the mystery and intrigue that make connections exciting. In essence, when something becomes too predictable, it often loses its appeal. Now, let's clarify something important. Attachment itself isn't the problem. Healthy attachment is the foundation of meaningful relationships. But the key word here is healthy. Unhealthy attachment stems from fear. Fear of losing the person, fear of being alone, or fear of not being enough. This fear-driven behavior can manifest in ways that push the other person away. For example, constantly seeking reassurance might make them question your confidence, or excessive communication could make them feel suffocated. Here's where Stoicism offers a valuable perspective. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In relationships, this means focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and self-worth, rather than obsessing over how the other person feels about you. By shifting your focus inward, you naturally exude confidence and self-respect, qualities that make you more attractive and valuable in their eyes. But how do you balance attachment and independence? Start by cultivating a life outside of the relationship. Pursue your passions, spend time with friends, and invest in your personal growth. When your life feels full and fulfilling, your attachment becomes a choice, not a need. This shift not only strengthens your sense of self, but also creates a dynamic where the other person values your presence rather than taking it for granted. Let's flip the perspective for a moment. Imagine someone who's overly attached to you, constantly calling, texting, and seeking validation. While their intentions might be pure, how does it make you feel? Over time, that level of attachment might feel draining or even suffocating. The same principle applies in reverse. By creating a healthy balance, you allow the relationship to breathe and grow naturally. Another key element is setting boundaries. Boundaries aren't about creating distance. They're about establishing mutual respect. When you communicate your needs and expectations clearly, it demonstrates self-respect and fosters a sense of security in the relationship. For instance, if you're constantly available at their convenience, they might start to take that availability for granted. But when you prioritize your own time and energy, it signals that your presence is valuable and not to be overlooked. It's also worth mentioning that detachment doesn't mean indifference. You can care deeply about someone while maintaining your independence. The goal isn't to withhold affection or play hard to get. It's to show that you value yourself as much as you value the relationship. This balance creates a foundation of mutual respect and admiration, which is essential for any lasting connection. To wrap this up, attachment is a natural part of relationships, but it needs to be balanced with self-respect and independence. By focusing on your own growth and maintaining healthy boundaries, you create a dynamic where your value is recognized and appreciated. Remember, true connection thrives when both people feel free to be themselves without fear or pressure. Comment below, I value balance. Let's affirm our commitment to creating relationships rooted in respect and authenticity. Stay tuned because in the next section, we're going to explore how emotional decision-making can sometimes lead us astray and what you can do to stay grounded. You don't want to miss this. Number 2, the pitfalls of emotional reactions in relationships. All right, folks, let's get into something we've all experienced. Making decisions in relationships based purely on emotions. While emotions are an essential part of any connection, letting them dictate your actions can sometimes lead you astray. The thing is, emotions can cloud judgment, making you react impulsively rather than thoughtfully. And when that happens, it can create unnecessary tension, misunderstandings, and even push someone away. Think about a moment when you felt overwhelmed by your emotions in a relationship. Maybe you've sent a flurry of texts after feeling ignored or made a grand gesture to win back someone's attention. While these actions might feel right in the heat of the moment, they often come across as desperate or overly reactive. Instead of bringing clarity or resolution, they can make the other person feel pressured or uncomfortable. Why does this happen? It's all about how our brains process emotional triggers. When we're hurt, anxious, or even excited, our brain's limbic system, the part responsible for emotions, takes over. This can lead to impulsive reactions driven by fear or a need for reassurance. But these reactions often fail to address the root of the issue and instead create a cycle of emotional highs and lows that can strain the relationship. Now, don't get me wrong. Emotions are important. They're what make relationships meaningful and deep. But there's a difference between feeling emotions and letting them control your decisions. The Stoics understood this distinction well. As Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This is a reminder that our emotional responses are often magnified by the stories we tell ourselves rather than the actual events. So, how can you break free from the pitfalls of emotional decision-making? Start by pausing before you act. When you feel an emotional surge, whether it's anger, sadness, or excitement, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? And why? This simple step creates space between your emotions and your actions, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Another powerful tool is perspective taking. Instead of focusing solely on how you feel, try to understand the other person's perspective. This doesn't mean dismissing your own emotions. It means broadening your view to include theirs. For instance, if someone hasn't responded to your message, your first reaction might be frustration or insecurity. But by considering their possible reasons, maybe they're busy or preoccupied, you can approach the situation with understanding rather than jumping to conclusions. Here's where boundaries come into play. Emotional decision-making often stems from a lack of boundaries, both with yourself and others. Setting personal boundaries, such as limiting how much emotional energy you invest in uncertain situations, can help you maintain balance. For example, instead of checking your phone constantly for a reply, redirect your energy towards something fulfilling, like a hobby or spending time with friends. Let's also talk about the importance of self-awareness. Recognizing your emotional triggers is key to managing them effectively. Maybe you feel anxious when communication slows down, or you get defensive when certain topics are brought up. By identifying these patterns, you can take proactive steps to address them before they escalate into reactive behaviors. But here's the most important part. Give yourself grace. Emotional decision-making isn't a flaw. It's a part of being human. The goal isn't to suppress your emotions, but to guide them in a way that aligns with your values and strengthens your connections. When you approach relationships with a calm, centered mindset, you not only build trust with the other person, but also with yourself. To wrap this up, emotions are powerful, but they don't have to control you. By pausing, gaining perspective, and setting boundaries, you can navigate relationships with clarity and confidence. Remember, it's not about denying your feelings. It's about using them as a tool for growth and connection. Comment below, I choose clarity. Let's affirm our commitment to thoughtful, balanced relationships. In the next section, we'll explore the intriguing balance between strength and attachment in relationships and why people often value one over the other. Stick around, you don't want to miss it. Number 3, why strength is more alluring than attachment. All right, folks, let's talk about a dynamic in relationships that often goes unnoticed but holds incredible power: the balance between strength and attachment. While attachment is a natural part of connection, what people are truly drawn to is strength. This isn't about physical strength or dominance. It's about emotional resilience, self-assurance, and the quiet confidence that says, I'm enough on my own. Think about the relationships in your life. Who are the people you admire and feel most drawn to? Chances are, they're the ones who exude a sense of inner strength and independence. These are the people who don't rely on others for validation or self-worth. And it's precisely this quality that makes them so magnetic. On the flip side, excessive attachment, where someone depends entirely on another for their emotional stability, can feel overwhelming or even stifling. So, why do people crave strength over attachment? It's rooted in human psychology. Strength represents stability and security. When someone demonstrates that they can stand strong on their own, it signals that they won't crumble under pressure or lose themselves in the relationship. This creates a sense of safety, which is one of the most attractive qualities in any connection. Now, this doesn't mean attachment is inherently bad. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding balance. Attachment, when paired with strength, becomes a beautiful bond that allows two people to support and uplift each other without losing their individuality. But when attachment takes the form of dependency, it can create an imbalance where one person feels burdened by the weight of the other's needs. Here's where the Stoic philosophy offers valuable guidance. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from within, not from external sources. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wisdom reminds us that relying on someone else for our sense of worth or happiness is a recipe for disappointment. True connection begins when two individuals bring their own wholeness to the table. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're in a relationship where one person constantly seeks reassurance, asking if they're loved, if they're enough, if things are okay. While their intentions might be rooted in love, this behavior can come across as insecure or needy. Over time, it can drain the other person, making them feel more like a caretaker than an equal partner. On the other hand, when someone approaches the relationship with quiet confidence, showing love but not clinging, It creates a dynamic of mutual respect and attraction. So how can you embody strength in your relationships? Start by prioritizing your own growth and well-being. When you have a fulfilling life outside of the relationship, you bring a sense of balance and independence that's incredibly appealing. This might mean pursuing your passions, maintaining strong friendships, or simply taking time for self-care. The goal is to create a life that feels rich and meaningful, whether you're in a relationship or not. Another important aspect is emotional regulation. Strength isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding and managing them. When challenges arise, take a step back and respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. This kind of emotional maturity not only strengthens your connection, but also builds trust and admiration. And let's not forget boundaries. Setting and respecting boundaries is one of the clearest signs of inner strength. It shows that you value yourself enough to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. For instance, if you feel overwhelmed by a partner's demands, communicating your needs calmly and assertively demonstrates strength while fostering a healthier dynamic. To wrap this up, strength and attachment aren't opposing forces. They're complementary. When you cultivate inner strength and pair it with healthy attachment, you create a foundation for relationships that are both stable and passionate. Remember, it's not about proving your worth to someone else. It's about embodying it in every aspect of your life. Comment below, I choose strength. Let's affirm our commitment to building connections rooted in mutual respect and self-assurance. Next up, we'll uncover the subtle ways people pull away and why understanding these patterns can save you from heartache. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Number 4. The quiet retreat. Why they slowly pull away. All right, folks. Let's talk about something that feels all too familiar, yet so confusing. The slow fade. You know the feeling. Everything seems fine. But then little by little, the person you care about begins to distance themselves. Texts become less frequent. Conversations lose their depth. And before you know it, they've quietly stepped back from the connection. It's not dramatic. It's not explosive. It's just a slow retreat. But why does this happen? The truth is, the slow fade often has less to do with you and more to do with what's going on inside the other person. Relationships can be emotionally overwhelming, especially when someone isn't ready to confront their own feelings or vulnerabilities. Instead of addressing the discomfort, they choose avoidance. It feels safer for them to quietly pull away than to confront whatever issue might be causing the tension. But here's where it gets tricky. When someone starts to fade out, it's easy to take it personally. You might replay every interaction, searching for where you went wrong. But the reality is, their retreat is usually a reflection of their own fears, insecurities, or doubts, not a measure of your worth. Understanding this can help you avoid falling into the trap of self-blame. Now, why does this slow retreat happen so subtly? It's because most people dislike confrontation. Addressing feelings of doubt or discomfort head-on requires vulnerability, and that can be terrifying. By fading out gradually, they hope to avoid hurting you while also sparing themselves from difficult conversations. It's not the healthiest way to handle things, but it's a coping mechanism many people default to. Let's consider a common scenario. Imagine you've been seeing someone who initially seemed very engaged, texting regularly, planning dates, sharing personal stories. But over time, their energy starts to shift. They cancel plans more often, take longer to reply to messages, and seem less enthusiastic overall. It's not that they've suddenly lost all feelings for you. It's that something within them has shifted, and instead of addressing it, they're choosing to fade away. So, what can you do when you notice this happening? The first step is to take a step back yourself. Resist the urge to chase after them or demand explanations. Instead, focus on observing their behavior objectively. Ask yourself, is this pattern consistent? Is their distance reflective of something going on in their life, or is it specific to our connection? Here's where boundaries become essential. If their behavior leaves you feeling confused or undervalued, it's okay to seek clarity. This doesn't mean confronting them aggressively. It means communicating your feelings calmly and directly. For example, you might say, "I've noticed some distance between us lately, and I just want to check in to see how you're feeling." This opens the door for an honest conversation without placing blame. But remember, you can't control their response. If they're unwilling or unable to engage in that conversation, it's important to respect their choice and focus on your own well-being. The slow fade, while painful, is often a signal that the connection might not have been as strong as you thought, or that the other person isn't ready for the depth you're offering. One powerful way to approach this situation is through self-reflection. Instead of fixating on their actions, use this as an opportunity to evaluate your own needs and boundaries. Ask yourself, what am I looking for in a connection? Does this relationship align with my values and goals? By shifting the focus inward, you reclaim your sense of agency and self-worth. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control the actions of others, only our own responses. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When faced with someone's retreat, this philosophy encourages us to remain grounded and not let their behavior define our emotional state. To wrap this up, the slow fade is one of the most challenging dynamics to navigate, but it's also an opportunity for growth. By recognizing the signs early, maintaining your boundaries, and focusing on your own well-being, you can protect your heart without closing it off. Remember, relationships are a two-way street, and if someone isn't willing to meet you halfway, it's okay to let them go. Comment below, "I honor my boundaries." Let's affirm our commitment to valuing ourselves in every connection. Next up, we'll explore how feelings, not logic, drive relationships, and why understanding this can transform the way you connect. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this. Number 5, it's about how they feel, not what they think. All right, folks, let's get into one of the most misunderstood aspects of relationships: how emotions, not logic, drive decisions. In every connection, no matter how rational someone seems, it's their feelings that dictate their actions. If you've ever wondered why someone pulls away or stays, despite what they say, the answer lies in their emotional experience, not their logical reasoning. Let's break this down. People may rationalize their choices with logic, but those choices are almost always rooted in how the situation makes them feel. For instance, someone might say they ended a relationship because it wasn't the right time, or we wanted different things. While these reasons sound logical, the underlying truth is often emotional. Perhaps they felt unfulfilled, overwhelmed, or uncertain about the connection. So, why is this so important? Because it means that the way you make someone feel holds far more weight than the words you say or the actions you take. Think about it. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything looked perfect on paper, but something just didn't feel right? That's the power of emotions at work. They're the invisible force shaping every decision, every interaction, and ultimately, every connection. Now, let's flip the perspective. If you want to create a deep and lasting connection, you need to focus on how the other person feels when they're around you. Do they feel safe, valued, and understood? Or do they feel pressured, judged, or overlooked? The answer to these questions will often determine whether the relationship thrives or fades. Here's the tricky part. Everyone processes emotions differently. What makes one person feel loved and appreciated might make another feel overwhelmed or uneasy. This is why emotional awareness is key. It's not just about expressing your own feelings. It's about tuning into theirs. Pay attention to their body language, their tone of voice, and the subtle cues they give about what resonates with them. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're in a relationship where your partner often says they feel unheard. You might logically explain your actions, saying you're busy or stressed, but that won't change how they feel. Instead, addressing their emotions by actively listening, acknowledging their feelings, and showing empathy creates a deeper sense of connection. When people feel understood, they're far more likely to stay engaged in the relationship. But here's a word of caution. Trying to control or manipulate someone's emotions is a losing game. Authenticity is essential. If your actions are driven by a desire to elicit a specific response, the connection will feel transactional and eventually break down. Instead, focus on building a genuine bond rooted in mutual respect and care. The Stoics offer valuable insight here. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." In the context of relationships, this means approaching connections with courage and honesty, rather than fear or manipulation. When you prioritize emotional authenticity over superficial gestures, you create an environment where both you and the other person can thrive. Now, let's talk about how you can put this into practice. Start by being emotionally present in your interactions. This means giving your full attention, listening without interrupting, and validating the other person's feelings. Small gestures, like remembering details they've shared or checking in after a tough day, can have a profound impact. Equally important is managing your own emotions. If you're overwhelmed or reactive, it's hard to create a stable emotional environment for someone else. Take time to reflect on your own feelings and ensure you're approaching the relationship from a place of clarity and calm. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means understanding them so they don't control you. Finally, remember that emotions are dynamic. They change and evolve based on circumstances, experiences, and interactions. Stay attuned to these shifts and be willing to adapt. A connection built on emotional awareness isn't static. It's a living, breathing bond that grows over time. To wrap this up, relationships aren't about logic. They're about feelings. By focusing on how you make the other person feel, you can build a connection that's not only strong, but also deeply fulfilling. Remember, it's not about convincing someone to stay. It's about creating an emotional space they don't want to leave. Comment below. I honor emotions. Let's affirm our commitment to fostering emotional depth and understanding in our relationships. Next, we'll explore why imagination and mystery play a crucial role in attraction, and how you can harness this powerful dynamic. Stick around, you don't want to miss it. Number 6. The role of imagination in attraction. All right, folks, let's dive into something that often goes unnoticed, but is incredibly powerful. The role of imagination and mystery in attraction. You've probably heard the saying, "We always want what we can't have." But there's more to it than just desire for the unattainable. Imagination fuels attraction by filling in the blanks, creating a sense of intrigue and keeping the connection exciting. When someone doesn't have all the answers about you, their mind works overtime to fill in the gaps, and that's where the magic happens. Think about it this way. When you first meet someone, part of the excitement comes from the unknown. You're curious about who they are, what they like, and what they're thinking. But as the relationship progresses, if everything becomes too predictable, the excitement can fade. This doesn't mean you should hide parts of yourself or play games. It means leaving just enough mystery to keep the connection alive. Why does imagination play such a big role in attraction? It's because humans are naturally drawn to things that stimulate their curiosity. When someone doesn't have all the answers about you, it creates a mental puzzle they want to solve. This sense of intrigue keeps their thoughts focused on you, wondering what you're thinking or feeling, and the more they think about you, the stronger the emotional connection becomes. Now, let's talk about how to use this dynamic in a genuine and authentic way. First, avoid oversharing too soon. While it's important to be open and honest, revealing every detail of your life right away can take away the element of discovery. Instead, share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences gradually. This allows the other person to get to know you over time, making each interaction feel fresh and engaging. Another way to harness the power of imagination is through your actions. For example, if you're texting or messaging someone, resist the urge to reply immediately every time. This doesn't mean ignoring them or playing hard to get. It simply means giving the conversation room to breathe. When you're not constantly available, it creates space for them to wonder about you and miss your presence. Let's look at this from another angle. How imagination works in the context of shared experiences. When you create moments that are memorable and meaningful, they linger in the other person's mind long after the moment has passed. Whether it's a thoughtful gesture, a unique date idea, or even a simple but heartfelt conversation, these moments give them something to think about and cherish. But here's the catch. Mystery and imagination only work when paired with authenticity. If you're deliberately withholding information or creating an artificial sense of mystery, it can come across as manipulative. The goal isn't to confuse or frustrate the other person. It's to create a dynamic that feels natural and engaging. Be genuine in your interactions while allowing the relationship to unfold at its own pace. The Stoics teach us the importance of balance, and this applies here as well. While it's essential to maintain a sense of intrigue, it's equally important to build trust and connection. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." In relationships, this means embodying the qualities you value: kindness, honesty, and confidence, while also embracing the mystery that makes you unique. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're on a date and the other person asks about your goals or dreams. Instead of giving a detailed answer, you might say something like, "That's a great question. I have a few ideas, but I'm still figuring it out." This response is honest, but leaves room for further exploration. It shows that you're thoughtful and reflective without giving away everything at once. Finally, remember that imagination and mystery aren't just about the other person. They're also about you. When you cultivate your own sense of curiosity and wonder about the world, it naturally translates into your relationships. Explore your passions, try new things, and embrace the unknown. The more dynamic and interesting your life is, the more magnetic you become. To wrap this up, attraction thrives on imagination and mystery. By sharing yourself authentically while leaving room for curiosity, you create a connection that feels alive and exciting. Remember, it's not about playing games. It's about inviting the other person to discover you over time, making each step of the journey meaningful. Comment below, "I embrace curiosity." Let's affirm our commitment to fostering intrigue and authenticity in our relationships. Next, we'll explore the surprising power of controlled detachment and how it can transform the way you approach connections. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Number 7. The quiet strength of controlled detachment. All right, folks. Let's wrap up this journey with a concept that is as powerful as it is misunderstood: controlled detachment. At first glance, the idea of detachment might sound cold or unfeeling, but in reality, it's a deeply empowering approach to relationships. Controlled detachment isn't about withdrawing or caring less. It's about maintaining your emotional balance and preserving your self-worth, no matter what happens in the connection. Why is detachment so powerful? It's because relationships are at their best when they're built on mutual respect, not dependence. When you approach someone with a sense of inner strength and self-assurance, it creates a dynamic where both people feel free to be themselves. Detachment allows you to give and receive love without fear of losing yourself in the process. Now, let's clear up a common misconception. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring the other person or pretending not to care. Instead, it means releasing the need to control the outcome of the relationship. You stop obsessing over whether they'll stay or go and start focusing on showing up as your best, most authentic self. This shift isn't just liberating for you, it's also incredibly attractive to the other person. Think about it. When someone is overly invested in the relationship, constantly seeking validation or reassurance, it can feel overwhelming. But when you're able to approach the connection with calm confidence, it creates a sense of ease and security. The other person doesn't feel pressured to meet your emotional needs because you've already met them for yourself. Let's consider an example. Imagine you've been texting someone you're interested in, and they suddenly take hours, or even days to reply. Your first instinct might be to overanalyze the situation, wondering if you said something wrong or if they're losing interest. But with controlled detachment, you approach the situation differently. Instead of spiraling into doubt, you remind yourself that their response, or lack thereof, doesn't define your worth. You continue living your life, pursuing your goals, and maintaining your sense of inner peace. Here's the magic of this approach. When you're not emotionally tied to every interaction, you create space for the other person to miss you and appreciate your presence. Detachment isn't about playing hard to get. It's about genuinely valuing your time and energy. This mindset shifts the focus from trying to win someone over to simply being yourself and letting the connection unfold naturally. Controlled detachment also helps you navigate the ups and downs of relationships with grace. No relationship is perfect, and conflicts or misunderstandings are inevitable. But when you're grounded in detachment, you're able to approach these challenges with a level head. You don't react impulsively or let your emotions control you. Instead, you respond thoughtfully and calmly, which often leads to better outcomes. The Stoics had a profound understanding of detachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In relationships, this means focusing on what you can control, your actions, your emotions, and your mindset, rather than trying to control how the other person feels or behaves. This shift not only brings you peace, but also strengthens the connection by removing unnecessary pressure. Now, let's address the fear that often comes with detachment. If I'm not invested, won't they think I don't care? The answer is no. True detachment isn't about withholding love. It's about offering it freely, without attachment to the outcome. When someone sees that you care deeply but don't depend on their validation, it creates a sense of admiration and respect. They're drawn to your strength and independence because it shows that you value yourself. Detachment also allows you to recognize when a relationship isn't serving you. By staying emotionally balanced, you can step back and evaluate the connection objectively. If the other person isn't meeting your needs or treating you with respect, detachment gives you the courage to walk away without losing your sense of self. To wrap this up, controlled detachment is a powerful tool for building healthier, more fulfilling relationships. It's not about closing yourself off. It's about creating space for genuine connection while protecting your own well-being. By approaching relationships with strength, self-respect, and emotional balance, you become someone who is not only deeply attractive but also deeply fulfilled. Take this to heart. True connection doesn't come from clinging or chasing. It comes from being whole and allowing others to see that wholeness. Let detachment be your quiet strength, the foundation of every relationship you build moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this video gave you some powerful insights to reflect on and apply in your relationships. Remember, understanding yourself and others is the key to building meaningful connections. If you found value in this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more transformative content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and stay strong.